I eased my car into the familiar gravel driveway. The late afternoon sun filtering through the tall pines, lining the street of our quiet Portland suburb. The warmth on my steering wheel felt like a small victory after 3 intense days at the county recorder's office finalizing every detail of Grandpa Harlan's estate. The Willow Creek Trust now held the $1.2 million securely in my name, and for the first time in 5 long years, the constant knot of worry in my chest had started to loosen. Caring for him through the final stages of Parkinson's, bathing him when his hands shook too badly to hold a glass, reading his favorite John Steinbeck novels aloud when his vision faded, sitting by his bedside through those last labored breaths, had been exhausting. But it had also forged something unbreakable between us. The crunch of tires on gravel gave way to a sudden slam of brakes as I spotted the large white moving truck parked crookedly beside the porch. A stocky mover in gray coveralls was carefully carrying Grandpa's prized mahogany roll-top desk down the front steps, the same desk where Harlan had written letters home from the Korean War and later sketched plans for the house itself. My mother, Lydia, stood in the yard with a clipboard, her voice sharp as she directed the crew. "Watch the crystal in that china cabinet next. Those pieces belong to my mother-in-law." She hadn't noticed me yet. My keys slipped from numb fingers and clattered onto the porch boards. The sound cut through the afternoon air like a warning bell. That's when I saw my brother Derek emerging from the open front door, arms loaded with boxes of Grandpa Harlan's rare first edition books, Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Steinbeck volumes easily worth tens of thousands. His sleek electric SUV sat nearby, trunk already half filled with similar cartons. The sight punched the air from my lungs. "What the hell are you doing?" My voice cracked, raw and unfamiliar. Lydia turned, her practiced smile sliding into place a heartbeat too late.
"Mia,
"You're home early. We figured you'd be tied up at the bank all afternoon." The bank. My throat tightened. I had closed everything 3 days ago. I snatched the paper. She waved casually in my direction. A quitclaim deed, my signature forged at the bottom, transferring the entire property back into the family trust. My hands trembled so violently the document rattled. "This is forgery." Derek set his box down gently in the SUV and patted it like a prized possession. "Forgery's a harsh word, sis. We're just fixing an old mistake. 3 weeks earlier, around the same dining table now being dismantled and loaded onto the truck, Lydia had raised her wine glass in a mocking toast to Mia, who somehow convinced a sick old man to leave everything to her instead of sharing with the family that loved him. The laughter from Derek and a few distant cousins had stung like salt in a wound. The next day, Derek cornered me in the kitchen, asking innocent-sounding questions about how property transfers work after death, mentioning county records and how complicated it all seemed. That night, I had quietly filed a fraud watch alert on the property deed with the county recorder. Now Lydia stepped between me and the house, blocking my path. "Be reasonable.
Mia."
You took advantage of a vulnerable elderly man. This is simply justice." My pulse hammered, but my voice steadied. "Show me the notarization on that deed." She hesitated for a split second, her diamond bracelet flashing in the sun. "It's all perfectly legal." "Then you won't mind me calling the county recorder to verify the notary." I pulled out my phone, muscle memory guiding my fingers. Lydia's mask cracked. "Put that away." Derek strolled over, casual as ever. "Come on,
"Mia."
we're just redistributing what should have been shared." Grandpa Harlan would have wanted the family taken care of. "The family?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean your failed crypto investments and Mom's country club dues?" Lydia's face hardened. "We're taking what's rightfully ours." In that moment, standing on the porch of the house Grandpa Harlan had built board by board with Grandma Mabel, I saw the truth clearly. 5 years of caregiving, holding his hand through tremors, feeding him when he could no longer grip a spoon, Listening to his stories of building this very home meant nothing to them. They saw manipulation, not devotion. I pointed toward the street. Get off my property before I have you removed. Uncertainty flickered across Lydia's face for the first time. I had made my choice. The next morning I sat across from County Investigator Marcus Reed in his cluttered office, the forged deed lying on his desk like evidence of a crime scene. This notary stamp is from Nevada, I said quietly, stomach churning. My mother has never set foot there. Reed, a weathered man in his late 50s, nodded grimly. Counterfeit. This wasn't impulsive, it was planned. He slid a folder toward me containing additional bogus trust documents claiming to reinstall Lydia as trustee. My signature again forged at the bottom. The letterhead belonged to Summit Realty, Derek's employer. Corporate fraud layered on top of forgery, Reed said. Your fraud watch flag caught it early. Rage simmered beneath the nausea. While I had spent half a decade by Grandpa Harlan's side, they visited twice a year at holidays, bringing store-bought cards and leaving early. Now they wanted everything. Later that morning at the county recorder's office, fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Reed laid out evidence on the conference table. Lydia strode in wearing cream slacks and a cashmere sweater, chin high, tennis bracelet catching the light. Derek slouched behind in jeans and a tech-branded t-shirt, confidence wavering at Reed's presence. This meeting is unnecessary, Lydia announced. We're correcting a family injustice. Reed didn't smile. Mrs. Caldwell, what we have is forgery under Oregon revised statutes. Significant penalties apply. Entering the property after being told to leave is criminal trespass. Lydia snapped. It's our family home.
No, ma'am.
It legally belongs to your daughter. Reed turned to Derek. Summit Realty will be notified of the misuse of corporate resources and digital signatures. Derek paled. You can't do that. Already did. The weight of what I had almost lost settled heavily. The house valued at $850,000 in today's market. Brokerage accounts holding another $350,000. If their scheme had succeeded, I would have been left with nothing after years of sacrifice. Later that afternoon, I reviewed documents with Reed in his office, the reality sinking deeper. My phone buzzed with a text from Lydia's attorney demanding $150,000 in emotional restitution, plus joint ownership. The audacity nearly made me laugh. They're not backing down, I told Reed, showing him the message. He nodded. Family disputes like this get ugly. People stop speaking for generations. You need to decide if protecting your inheritance is worth the permanent damage to these relationships. The question echoed as I stared out the window toward the courthouse. Holidays alone. Severed ties with my only immediate family. But then memories flooded in. Grandpa Harlan's gnarled hand in mine as I fed him soup. His whispered stories of hammering every nail into the house with Grandma Mabel. Their legacy of hard work and integrity. The relationship had already been fractured long before the forgery. They had simply hidden the cracks. Your fraud watch saved you, Reed said. Most people don't think that far ahead. Trust those instincts. As I drove home that evening, the setting sun cast long shadows across the dashboard. I weighed exposing the fraud to extended family immediately versus letting the legal process unfold. Patience promised a more complete victory. But the urge to reveal the truth burned hot. 2 days later, the phone rang at dawn. Aunt Pamela's voice shook with fury. How could you do this to your mother after everything she sacrificed? I pressed fingertips to my temple. What exactly did she tell you? That you manipulated poor Harlan when he couldn't remember his own name. That you cut everyone else out during his final months. She paused dramatically. 31 of us who loved him just as much. Acid rose in my throat. Did she mention forging documents to steal the house? Or that Derek's crypto debts left him desperate? Silence stretched. That's not what she said. Ask her about the county fraud investigation. Ask Derek why Summit Realty is auditing his accounts. The line went dead. By afternoon, the kitchen lights wouldn't turn on. The power company confirmed service had been transferred at Lydia's request as new owner. It took 3 hours, 2 supervisors, and copies of my deed to restore electricity. That night the water was shut off too. Headlights swept my bedroom ceiling repeatedly, Derek's SUV circling the block. I lay awake until dawn, every creak of the old house sounding like footsteps on the porch. The next day I installed security cameras at every entrance and started a detailed log of incidents. When Derek parked across the street for 2 hours, I photographed everything. The doorbell rang Thursday morning. Through the camera feed, I saw a woman in a charcoal suit holding a coffee tray. Elena Vargas, estate attorney I had met briefly at the will reading. She offered me a cup and a thick envelope. Cease and desist letters for your mother and brother. The county investigator forwarded the details. I accepted both, feeling something tight in my chest finally ease. Your grandparents would be proud, she said quietly. They raised a fighter. That evening I spread evidence across the kitchen table, forged deed copies, fraud notices, timelines. I prepared packets for all 31 relatives, timestamp documents, highlighted notary discrepancies, flash drives with Derek's incriminating voice messages. Derek's name flashed on my phone. I answered. Why can't you just share? His voice sounded hoarse. You're destroying this family. I looked at photos of Grandpa Harlan teaching me to fish, Grandma Mabel's hands guiding mine over pie crust, 5 years of doctor visits and midnight vigils. I didn't destroy anything. I stopped pretending it was whole. Elena left a message the next afternoon about filing an ethics complaint against Derek with the Oregon Real Estate Board. Reed followed up confirming the formal investigation, and my property remained secure. Their professional integrity steadied me when family accusations flooded in. I worked late compiling the packets, each tailored, specific recordings for certain relatives, timestamp proofs placing Lydia in Nevada during the supposed Oregon notarization. Just before midnight, Elena texted that Summit Realty had zero tolerance for compliance violations, and Derek already had 2 prior strikes. I stared at the email ready to send to the entire family with attached evidence packets. 1 click and everyone would know exactly what Lydia and Derek had attempted. 1 click meant no turning back. I pressed send. 3 hours later, my cousin Deirdre called first, voice quavering.
Mia.
I had no idea. Your mother said you exploited Grandpa. But these documents, I'm so sorry. By evening, 2 more cousins offered similar apologies. I thanked them simply for listening. The following Tuesday, my office receptionist sounded tense. Your brother is here. He says he just wants to talk. I glanced at the restraining order framed on my desk. Tell security there's an active no-contact order. Call the police. Through the window, I watched Derek in the lobby. Designer jacket rumpled. Usual smirk replaced by desperation. When security approached, his face twisted. He pounded the reception desk shouting, "You're destroying everything, we're family," as officers escorted him out. That phrase again. As if blood granted permission to steal. Hours later, Summit Realty's compliance department notified me they had received screenshots of Derek misusing letterhead and after-hours security footage of him accessing his supervisor's account to send fraudulent emails. Elena arrived that evening with thick folders detailing the ethics complaint to the Oregon Bar, 27 pages on forgery, fiduciary violations, misuse of resources. Reed called shortly after. I filed the official report recommending criminal charges. Evidence is compelling. Derek had been suspended from Summit Realty pending investigation. The next morning brought rapid developments. Lydia's lawyer withdrew, citing irreconcilable differences after reviewing evidence. Uncle Roger called awkwardly to say Aunt Helen had uninvited Lydia from the upcoming family dinner. Extended relatives were starting to see the truth. Then an email from Summit Realty HR.
Copied company-wide.
Announced Derek faced a 72-hour internal audit determining his future employment. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders relaxed slightly as I looked out over the garden where Grandpa Harlan had taught me to plant tomatoes at age 7. The fight wasn't over. But I wasn't alone. The following week, the doorbell rang as I finished morning coffee. Through the security camera, I saw Lydia and Derek on the porch. Lydia wore a conservative black pantsuit, Derek's shoulders hunched in an ill-fitting button-down. I took my time answering, letting Oregon drizzle soak them. When I opened the door, I didn't invite them inside. "Whatever you're selling." "I'm not interested." Lydia forced a smile.
Mia.
"We need to talk family to family. We have a compromise," Derek added, voice lacking smugness. "Something that works for everyone." I crossed my arms.
Silent.
"Drop the charges," Lydia whispered. "In exchange, we'll accept $50,000 and agree to family therapy." Derek stepped closer. "This legal battle will destroy what's left of the family." Is that what Grandpa Harlan would have wanted? The mention ignited fury. "Don't you dare speak his name." "We made a mistake," Lydia said, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. "But family forgives." A short, bitter laugh escaped. "Healing? Is that what this is?" I grabbed an envelope from the side table. "You're 3 days too late. I've moved everything into an irrevocable trust. The house, accounts, all of it." Their faces shifted from confusion to disbelief to horror. "You can't do that," Derek sputtered. I unfolded the letter inside. "Summit Realty terminated your employment for gross violations and fraud. They've cooperated fully with the prosecutor." Lydia's voice rose. "They can't prove anything without. They have your signatures." The fake notary seal Derek ordered online. The planning emails from his company account. I stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind me. The family was already broken. I'm just refusing to pretend anymore. 3 days later, I stood on the courthouse steps as spring sunlight broke through clouds. Derek had just been arraigned on Class C felony forgery charges. His lawyer hurried him toward a car while Lydia lingered, eyes red-rimmed. I walked directly to her, heart hammering but step steady, manila envelope in hand. "What more do you want? Haven't you done enough?" I held out the envelope. "This is the last thing I have to say." She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were photos of Grandpa Harlan and Grandma Mabel on their 50th anniversary, standing proudly before the house. A small note read, "They trusted me to protect their legacy." I did. Lydia's hands shook. With a sudden jerk, she tore the photos in half, then quarters. "You self-righteous little." She stopped as her gaze shifted past me. 3 relatives, Aunt Patty, Uncle Jim, Cousin Rachel, stood across the street watching in stunned silence as torn fragments fluttered to the ground. Without another word, I turned and walked away, leaving my mother alone amid the scattered pieces of our family's past. 2 weeks later, Derek accepted a plea deal, probation, hefty fines, and a permanent fraud conviction that would follow him lifelong. Elena texted that civil liability for Lydia's conspiracy remained on the table. I set the phone down without replying. The battle had left me hollow rather than triumphant. That evening, settled into Grandpa Harlan's old reading chair with tea, a voicemail played from an unfamiliar number.
"Mia.
This is your cousin Daniel, your grandfather's sister's grandson. We've never met, but I've heard what happened with Aunt Lydia and Derek. I'd like your side if you're willing. Some of us think you did the right thing." I stared at the phone long after it ended, wondering if Justice's price might eventually prove worth it. 3 months after the victory, I slid open the workshop doors, breathing in sawdust and tung oil. Grandpa Harlan's tools hung perfectly ordered on the pegboard, each hammer, chisel, plain exactly where he left them. Sunlight streamed through newly cleaned windows onto the maple workbench where he had taught me to sand with the grain. No longer just visiting, I whispered, running fingers along the wood. 3 months since the courthouse steps. Since watching Lydia tear up the photos while relatives witnessed her true nature. Now, I planned restorations and preservation for future generations instead of justifying my presence. The east wall needed better insulation before winter, I told Elena as she toured the space. And skylights for natural light. She smiled at the confidence in my voice. Harlan would approve. No apologies. No justifications, just forward movement. The family reunion buzzed on the back lawn. Checkered cloths covered tables laden with fried chicken and corn on the cob, Grandpa Harlan's favorite summer meal. Cousins mingled by lemonade while aunts arranged desserts. I tapped my glass. 30 pairs of eyes turned. Thank you for coming. Some of you know the past months have been difficult. There were attempts to contest Harlan's will through forgery and fraud. The legal matters are resolved. This property remains, as Harlan intended, a place for family to gather and remember what matters. Aunt Phyllis, who once forwarded Lydia's accusatory emails, approached first. You handled this with grace. Harlan chose wisely. Uncle Warren added. The house looks better than it has in decades. Their respect felt earned, not granted. Later in the quiet kitchen, I raised a glass with Reed and Elena. To protecting those who can't protect themselves, Reed offered. Elena added. And to those who find courage to stand their ground. Our glasses clinked warmly. That evening after everyone left, I wound Grandpa Harlan's mantel clock, the weekly ritual he performed every Sunday night for 60 years. The brass key turned with familiar resistance, mechanism clicking comfortingly. I had already spoken with Elena about establishing a legal aid fund for elder financial abuse victims. 10% of the inheritance would provide representation for seniors facing what Harlan might have endured without me. The clock chimed 9 deep resonant notes, marking both the hour and generations this house had sheltered. I kept your promise, I whispered to Harlan's portrait above the fireplace. His eyes seemed to twinkle approval in the lamplight, and I found my strength along the way. The house settled around me, creaking and sighing like a living thing. As I sat in Grandpa Harlan's chair that night, I wondered whether some families can survive the truth while others are destroyed by it. When protecting what is right means losing those you once loved, what choice would you make? I know mine now, and at last I am at peace with it.